Call the meeting to order. Ask if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. First on the agenda, the minutes of September 19th, 2008. September 19th, 2018.
Moved as written.
Second.
Any corrections or changes?
Yes, I had a couple.
Go ahead.
One was the top paragraph at page 2. Let me go back and find that now. The top paragraph on page 2. It says several community members spoke about their concerns regarding after-school transportation, blah, 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 and then it ends up saying if not. And I think that was the start of that second sentence there, so I think just taking out the if not would clean that up.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. The other one was...
G, in that same section, we have retain age, should be retained.
And the amount of the retainage needs to be changed also. Zach, I don't think you meant 19,000.
No.
It's 189, 100, I think, right?
Yep.
Could you say that again, please?
The amount of retainage is not 18,000, it's 189,000.
Okay.
It was 189,
100.
100.
Which
Okay,
sent it
thank you.
even 400 back to the general fund.
I have one.
Go ahead.
On page 1, Candy, number 3, it says minutes September 19th. It should be minutes September 5th.
Okay, thank you.
And the last one I have is pretty minor, but it was just a typo. The top of page 3 is talking about ALMA, the new SIS system, to make their SIS program fit our needs, just a R versus a T.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Any other changes, corrections? All in favor of the minutes as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Consent items.
We have 2 requests. One is a staff member's request for child rearing leave, and the other is for time off. If you want to discuss those, then we'll need to be done in non-public session. If there are no questions, you can take action in public session.
I would move to approve the requests.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Dealey,
Mr. Langway.
you skipped agenda review there.
Thank you. Let's go back to agenda review. Any changes besides for skipping agenda review?
And also public comments, too.
We'll start over?
Sailing right along.
We're sailing right along. Thank you. How did I get to there? It's been a long day. Are there any public comments? All right, seeing none, we are now on agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda anyone would like?
Yes, I'd like to add maybe an item for informational at the end about the Concord High School calendar.
Okay. Anything else? All right. So we have now already done consent items because I skipped to C. Board member appointment. All right. We had Shelley Tetro leave our board, unfortunately, a couple of months ago, and we did solicit from the community people who are interested in joining the board. We had 2 applicants. One is Alden Dill, and one is Leslie Ribbon. Are you Leslie? Hi, Leslie. I'm not seeing Alden, so I guess he couldn't make it tonight, but We did send out a questionnaire, and the questionnaire had kind of set number of broad topics to discuss. Both Alden and Leslie responded to them. Since Alden is not here tonight or hasn't made it yet, I thought the best way to approach this would be to kind of open the discussion to the candidate, and obviously we're going to start with you, and talk a little bit about the questions, and if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on your answers, we've read your application, and if there are board members who have questions in regards to any of these topics, feel free to ask. So the first question was, what are your priorities for the school in the coming year, and why and how did you select these issues? Speak a little bit to that, or should
we invite her?
Would you like to come up and join us?
Sure.
All right.
And we could also read.
Yeah, we can read them and then ask questions. So why don't I read through each one of the questions, and then we will ask any questions from the candidates. So the first question is, what are your priorities for the school in the coming year? Why and how did you select these issues? The second is, what is your own experience with public education? How would your own experience influence your work as board member? The third question is, what do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities? The fourth question is, what are your 3 overall education priorities that, in a perfect world, you would accomplish during your time in office? How will you go about achieving them? And why are these the most important? Fifth question is, describe the likelihood that you would run for election to the seat in March. And the sixth question is, describe a new and different perspective that you have been to bring. So you had elaborate answers to all of these questions, which is fantastic. So are there questions from any board members in regards to the answers? You want to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience in the community and just kind of in a general sense?
Absolutely. My name is Leslie Witham, and I have been a resident of Deerfield since 2005 and became a more permanent resident of Deerfield in 2009 when we purchased our home on Raymond Road. I have 2 students at DCS, one in 3rd grade and one in kindergarten. And have been involved in the community throughout my tenure here in Deerfield, both with volunteering at the school and as well as with volunteering with Parks and Rec. So very familiar with a lot of the little guys everywhere and a lot of our students. And also very involved in the community in general with doing activities with other parents as well. Such as, the Deerfield has a very healthy running, hobby club, if you won't use so well. And so in touch with a lot of the parents and a lot of the concerns of the parents in town as well. And so my background professionally, I am a technology professional. I'm director of Technology and Innovation at GYK Antler, which is a marketing agency. And I have over 15 years, close to 20 years experience in the technology world, and feel that I contribute a lot to our school and would like the opportunity to do so in this capacity. A little bit else about myself is that I do have a lot of experience with state agencies. Through my work at GYK Antler, we have been agency of record for over 30 years for the New Hampshire Lottery, as well as agency of record for a number of years for travel and tourism and the Department of Business and Economic Affairs. So very familiar with sort of how we grow revenue in our state, how that revenue is dispersed as well. I have connections, or I should say I'm familiar with some of the educators that are on the Auburn School District Board as well, who have helped orient me in what it is that a school board does. So although I don't have direct experience with education and public education myself, like I said, I'd like the opportunity to learn, to come on board and help our community.
Great. Any questions? I have a question.
Sure.
Can you, I really liked your educational priority about continuing and spreading second languages throughout the entire school. Is that something that you have a passion for, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So English is my second language. My first language is Spanish, so I'm fluent in both English and Spanish. And have continued my education with studying other languages. I took Latin for 6 years, which incredibly helped my vocabulary. And as well as ancient Greek, as well as Italian, just for, again, for enjoyment and for travel as well. So it is something that I know that because I learned 2 languages at such an early age, I was fluent in both English and Spanish before I was in school. So that allowed me to elaborate on other languages and pick up other languages as well. So it is a very, I am very passionate about it. I think it's crucial. I'm trying to do the same in my home and have a bilingual household, which I don't know if many of you know that about my children. But I think it's important.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Very thorough.
Yeah. Well, what you guys think about it. More questions.
I'm intrigued by your third part of that. Third part of your answer to that question about incorporating mindfulness into our school curriculum. Can you tell us more about that and exactly? Well, give us some idea how you try to incorporate that.
So I'm doing this with my own children at home before school. I meditate in the morning, and it is something that I feel helps ground them. So actually, that's exactly how I would go about it, is incorporate some sort of meditative. Doesn't have to be a lot. We started at 3 minutes and then have increased it to that, to more than that. We're up to about 15 minutes, and having a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old sit in a meditative state for that long is definitely a challenge, but I feel it helps them focus. The mornings when we do get it in are mornings that you can see the difference in behavior, you can see the difference in them being able to focus on getting ready in the morning, things like that. So again, a practice that I've sort of tested the waters on a little bit, and with my own children, and I feel that could be very beneficial for our entire student body.
Cool.
Nate?
The other one in that same question was 3 educational priorities. The middle one was about coding and technology, so clearly another important language that I think is we're all talking more about learning at younger ages. There are there are many in our community who perhaps are just as passionate about the idea of not sitting our kids in front of screens too early. So how would you, on the board, how would you help kind of figure out a balance between those 2 ideas? What would guide you when you were trying to answer a question about, are you going towards the not so much screen time or the more coding at a younger age?
I think the quality of the screen time that our children get is really what should drive that. If it's sitting in front of a TV or playing video games mindlessly, I'm not actually in favor of that. We actually try to minimize screen time at home as well. But if it's, I want to hop on the laptop for, an hour or 2 in order to learn coding, in order to do a math exercise. I just left Christopher today doing Zern, and of course I'm going to let him do that. I think it's the quality of the screen time that our children are getting. That's important.
Thank you.
So a large percentage of your time, especially if you wind up on the board, a large percentage of your time is working on budgets and balancing the needs of the school against the needs of the taxpayers. Have you worked on budgets in your professional experience, and can you speak to that?
So the way the marketing world works is, especially for retainer clients, is we get a number, a set budget at the beginning of their whatever fiscal year our client is on, and that budget needs to be divided up into the priorities of that particular client. So yes, I do have experience within my professional world of dividing up budgets, being very mindful as to when you need to go and ask for more money for certain things and what those priorities are and what the return on investment is going to be for doing so. So I think it's very translatable to what we might be doing here, and I am aware that that is a responsibility. I know I listed in the responsibilities of the school board. So again, I think it's very translatable to what we do of managing a yearly budget for a client, which would be typically our multi-million-dollar budgets for clients, and figuring out what the priorities are for a particular year and how to spend that money.
Any other questions?
All set.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I see Alden joined us, so
Thank you very much.
I'm going to invite
Thank you.
invite Alden to come on up.
Sorry, I'm late, guys.
That's all right. So what we did and what we're doing tonight, Alden, is
Asking additional questions.
we're asking additional questions. We went over what the original questions were, and we have your application. So I'll ask you a little bit along the same line. And just one, particularly, can you speak to your experience with budgets? And
Well, I was on the budget committee in Northwood as a selectman representative for a few years. I was a selectman in Northwood for 6 years. I'm currently on the budget committee here in town, and I was the chairman last year. So I have some experience with the school budget. I've never been on the school board before, so I haven't had your budget setting experience, but I have done it on the selection side.
Okay. You get both candidates have spoken to the need for additional space.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about your responses in a perfect world, expanding the school without using modular classrooms?
Yes, I really would like to expand the school without using modular classrooms. My daughter was in the modulars for 2 years. They're not terrible, but they're not perfect. And I think we're just going to keep band-aiding the solution if we keep adding modulars. I was excited last year when we did the demographic study, but I wasn't too excited, as I've heard a lot of you guys were, when we got the results of the demographic study, and now we have real estate going nuts in town. I don't see schools shrinking any. I think we got to figure out, I think that's the next big challenge for the school board is going to be space and where the heck we're going to put it and how we're going to pay for it. I don't see that happening between now and the spring. I think that's one of the long-term solutions.
I was remiss in not asking you to, since we are being videotaped, can you introduce yourself and explain your role in the community and how long you've been in Deerfield? And
well, my name's Alden Dill. I live over in Griffin Road. We have a farm over there. I've been in town for going on 9 years now. Moved from Northwood before that. Grew up locally here. I thought we'd apply. I thought I'd put my name in. I wasn't sure how many people you were going to have applying. I wanted to make sure you had at least one. So that was my thought behind that. Like I said, I've never been on the school board, but I see a need. I try to help fill it, so that's why I thought I'd toss my name in there.
do we have questions for Alden?
Yes. Having been on the MVC and looked at our budget, do you have any words of wisdom you could offer us to how we could afford some of the things that we want to do here?
The biggest thing I noticed on the budget is how much is not discretionary, that just has to go through. And I'm impressed that you guys got it as good as you did last year, because you cut one thing and you're making good progress, and then, you know, the special ed busing goes up the exact, you know, larger than the amount we just cut out. So I didn't read through it to see anything glaring that I could say, yep, that definitely has to come out. I know you guys are looking into interesting and different ways to do it, but I didn't see anything glaring, nor did I see anything that we can, oh yeah, we can definitely build a new school with that extra money over there. So,
Okay, thank you.
it's gonna be a grind.
That's probably true.
Zach?
You talked about the, you know, developing choice in the high school contracts. What are your thoughts on that?
So I was on when I first moved to town, again, if I see a committee that needed help, I jumped on it. I got on the high school selection committee, which I'm still honestly a little bitter how that turned out in the end. I didn't think the school board really listened to what we had to say. I think if possible, in a perfect world, I'd like to revisit that and see if there are any other options around here for school. I really don't like that the kids have to be on the bus that long. You know, my neighbor kids get on the bus at 6:15, and that to a teenager, they're getting up at 5:45. Seems like an awful long day for that. If nothing else, I grew up in Lee, and at that point, Deerfield had the option to go to Oyster River and a bunch of other schools. And I know that ship sailed, and we need a better choice of schools. But I'd like to revisit that if possible in perfect world. I know we're in contractual obligations and can't at all times, but I mean, we have Co-Brown right there that's looking for kids, and I'd like to be able to at least start a conversation with them and see if they could do something in Deerfield again.
Your answer to number 3 about board's roles and responsibilities, and given an answer, keeping the school running smoothly for all interested parties. Students, educators, paraprofessionals, taxpayers. Can you tell us more about how you would balance priorities between those groups?
Well, the big thing is the contract that's coming up. I think the first group that takes the most is the students. Yes, we have to balance a low budget and taxpayer responsibility, but not at the cost of students. I think the big thing is, and I said the same thing when I was running for selectman last year, that we have to get more information out in town to everybody. And we're kind of at a loss here because we don't have a town newspaper. We have the Forum, which is kind of a newspaper, but not really. We have Facebook pages, which is kind of a source of information, but not really. I think we have to get the budget out and sell it to the taxpayers better before deliberative session this year. And I think that would be one of my major ways to try to get that out. Now, how we're going to do that, I'm not sure, but I think there has to be a larger PR push on the budget before.
Now we're recording.
Okay, for those who are watching the video, we did have some technical malfunctions.
The audience can attest to it.
The board voted unanimously to promote Leslie Whitman to the open board seat. So we are now on to Parks and Recreation. Nick from Parks and Rec is here. Nick, I know you last time had a proposal for us, and I believe you chatted with the administration and stuff. You and the administration going to want to talk about that a little better?
That would be correct, yes. So yesterday I met with the athletic director, Cindy Hansen, as well as the vice principal, Brian Grieve, and we basically came to the conclusion that we wouldn't be able to use the entire cafeteria due to the Spirit team that practices in there from November to February, roughly. So Deb and I talked about it, and we do think that we could still make use of half of the space in the cafeteria to house a satellite after-school location, where it's from 2:30 to 4 they practice typically. We would shift our schedule around with how we do certain things. We typically have study time during that period of time, but we could switch to activity or something like that and study on the back end, or vice versa based on what else is going on in the cafeteria. So I think we can still make use of the time if the proposal, if everyone's on board with the proposal. So
Okay. Kristen, did you want to speak a little bit to?
Yeah, I guess it's we have to also consider that it's not just the cheer team that's using the cafeteria, it's other things are being used. So I know Cindy and you know Cindy and Brian, and they had mentioned that was a big part of it. There's nowhere else to put them.
Right.
So in looking at the other cafeteria uses, we have somebody that does come in at 5:30. You would need to cap until 6, correct?
Yes.
Was there any conversation about the enrichment program having on Tuesdays and Thursdays with the enrichment program coming in? Was there, I think was there a conversation about if you wanted to, one of the selling points for you was that enrichment could stay and use
Correct.
the enrichment program, to go to the enrichment program and have you to come after it. And I know that one of the things that we talked about is having you there on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the enrichment time, or having a staff member over to help cover for that.
Yes.
That being a big piece of it. I guess we'll need to take a look at whether using half the cafeteria is really a good use of our space. Are there other things that came up with Brian and Cindy?
That was the main thing. It was, that sounded like it was still on the table, so we considered that. We're willing to adapt in order to, to give the kids other opportunities here at the school, as well as space things out over at GBW. So,
and so I think we really need to keep in mind that the issue over at DPW isn't a space issue anymore.
It's not. No.
Right.
It never really was. It was secondary.
Right. It's always been a staffing
It's
issue,
been, yeah,
right?
correct.
So where do you see that being fixed by sending the staff, your staff members over here if it's a staffing issue to start with?
Right. It wouldn't fix it. It would be contingent on us filling our staff in order to house this. And that's, in the proposal, I think we aim for November 1st, contingent on staffing, because we'd have to have at least 2 staff over here to do it. So, yeah, that's where we stand.
Sure.
It wouldn't help fix the staffing issue. That's the primary concern for the wait list and all that other stuff.
Right. So I actually want to emphasize that a little bit, because I know in the community some people are thinking that the school board is a part of this problem, and you guys ran into a problem with staffing. It is not a space issue at all. This is an entirely separate kind of proposal.
Correct.
Where you're approaching the school, but you do have enough space at the George B. White to house everyone.
Correct. And I believe in the last meeting I spoke to the fire chief's occupancy.
Yeah.
Yep. There's plenty of space on paper, but it's still nice to space out the kids when we can. So we're trying to be proactive and see if we can secure a second location.
Do you think it might be advantageous to continue discussions at this point with the administration so that you guys could see what it would look like?
Sure, I certainly do. I'm open to that.
I'm curious what that kind of discussion would look like, because we kind of laid everything out, so what else would we be discussing?
Well, we're now talking about half the cafeteria,
Right.
and you would be in the cafeteria with the cheer crowd, who are not quiet.
Correct. But neither are our kids. So
And still having to find spaces for the things that we would be displacing, like the Maggie's exercise group, as well as the enrichment. I know that the enrichment program uses that space a lot. So we would be putting teachers out of their classrooms in terms of, and again, the use of the building, wear and tear on the building is part of all of this. So, I think we do need to keep it on the table and lay out, because I know those things were not talked about yesterday.
Right.
What about the use of the bathroom, and how are you going to maintain the children in the cafeteria and make sure that they stay in that area? It's a very busy school after school, and we can't be worrying about 14, 15 kids running around in other places. We have lots of after-school sports things happening, and so I think there's some things that we absolutely need to hammer out before we make a final decision about whether to move forward or not. Considering the fact that you don't need the space, you have the space, So now the what's on the table is why would you want it, if you have the space, why do you come on over and use our space?
Right.
So I think those are some of the things I'd like to have a discussion about, just to hammer out some of those things.
Sure.
I know you have a staff member that is already coming over from here to go there, and he's being considered to be here.
Right.
But his role would be very different. At DCS, he's seen as a different professional here, so it would be very different after school, and make sure that we don't blur those lines either.
Sure.
What's the expectation of administration? There's discipline issues after school as well, and so those are things that we need to put back on the table and hash out before our final decision is made.
Sure.
And I also wonder with the staffing issue, like when you get the appropriate staff, that may help with the time frame. So if you're going to, by mid-October you hire, and then you can go forward with that. And I think the number of kids we talked about, that's kind of the important piece of the puzzle too.
Right.
And I was originally, my brain was 32, but Deb says it's closer to 14.
Yeah.
So keep maintaining that number, and what happens if it goes
It's
up?
very different.
Yes,
But
Yeah.
14 is very different.
Sure.
sure.
And
So we have another
we have another meeting.
We have another meeting this month. So you guys, it sounds like you guys have more things to discuss before the board makes a decision. Is that the sense of the
Yeah,
board? or
and I
does the
really,
board
I
want
really
to-
would, when that, during those discussions, if you guys can, for this to be attractive, I guess for me is I really want to see how it can bolster our after-school enrichment program. So if this is a tool to help us bolster the participation in that, I think it could be.
So with that in mind, if we
Right.
have I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you,
No.
13 or 14 kids, and then we're adding another, some of those kids will be in enrichment, but then we're adding another 8 or 9 kids coming over for whatever reason. Because this is this is 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, it would be fourth and up.
Yeah, and so, and enrichment is open K to
It's K through 8.
8, right?
It's
So
Depending on
depends
the
on what
program.
if we're getting another group of kids coming over, that's gonna add to the staffing that we need over here to support that.
And
If
that's-
they're gonna stay here for enrichment from the 4:30 to 6 o'clock range, so those are some things that we.
I know and I'm just throwing a couple of questions out there that I just want to kind of have you guys talk through, is, you're saying 4, 5, 6, well, there's a lot of families in town where they have a second grader and a fourth grader. My kids as an example.
Right.
So is it 2 trips? Are you picking up in 2 locations? Is there, what about the families? Is there a situation where it makes more sense to send them both to one location or the other? So I'm just trying to, I guess those are all things to think about and how that all works. I want you guys to work through all the logistics, I guess, up front, so that we can
Make a good decision.
make a good decision. I'm not against by any means. I just want to make sure that we have thought about this as an all-encompassing thing.
Nate?
Another piece of that, kind of something else that I don't know if you've considered or not, but we have Lori Lopez currently sort of is running the after school enrichment thing. If you are bringing over somebody else, then are they coordinating together? What is the relationship between the person who's representing the rec and the person who's representing the school? And does that become if there's a disciplinary decision that needs to be made, how is that? Who's who in terms of how those relationships play out? I don't know.
Any other questions for Nick? So I just want to reiterate, because I know that there have been people in the community who've been asking and curious about it, is that the school is in no way limiting the after-school program at this point.
That's correct.
This is entirely a discussion about a change to the after-school program. Do you guys have kind of a timeline for, I know you're staffing up at this point, are you bringing people off the waiting list?
We've taken off 10 so far. I can't remember if that was the most recent update that I gave here.
we got
But
2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
yeah, that's where we're at right now. So contingent on more staffing, we'll take more kids off, and we're moving as fast as we can.
All right.
Have you made job offers to candidates? Where are you in the?
Yeah, we're still in the process of staffing it up. We've hired 3 different ones with different availabilities, and that's pretty much where we're at. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Do you have any questions for us? Or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll continue the
So,
discussions.
Keep the discussions going.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Land use. This is on here in regards to request from both the police building committee and I believe the fire department for a helicopter landing zone. This is continuing business. We had a letter. So everyone had a chance to review the legal letter we got last time. That it would require a warrant article in order to do any kind of a transfer. And
Landing zone, you could do a lease with the landing zone, but a longer term lease would require a warrant article. If you were interested in allowing the landing zone to be worked out, it would probably make sense to get a proposal for the attorney to look at for a lease and the details.
so what is the wish of the board?
So I would say in regards to the landing zone, I don't see how we can not try to help work through that situation. So in regards to that, I think if we put the onus on the fire department to bring a proposal forward to us to send over to legal for review, and then if it needs to go to the voters in March, we'll address it then. But I would move that we allow the fire department to, I guess, proceed forward with the proposal for us. I know if I need a helicopter to come pick me up,
You don't want
I don't want to flying around town looking for a place to land.
Was that a motion?
That should be a motion.
Was it a motion?
I don't think you said.
I'd move to allow the fire department access to the land pending approval by legal and taxpayer.
Pending a proposal.
Pending a proposal.
Second.
All right, discussion. So there's I have not looked at the title, but if the caveat is if the title of the property, and the discussion is on the piece of property that is 75 acres at the corner of 43 and 107 down by the fairgrounds. The fire department has asked to use part of the paved road as a maintained landing spot for emergency helicopter access to the town in case somebody needs to be airlifted out to a hospital. They would remove the earthen barrier and put a gate that they would have a key to.
And they would then maintain the road.
Right. As long as the deed doesn't have a restriction to be used for school purposes only, we can enter into a lease with them based on the approval of the proposal that they bring forward. I don't believe that requires a warrant article.
No, not for
That would
short-term lease, no.
So we could do a 1-year lease and renew it each year until we wound up using the property for something else, or continue to renew it.
And this work would be coming from their budget?
The work for,
Clearing it out, prepping it, putting a gate in.
we have to get the proposal. I think that the proposal should definitely include all of the details in regards to maintenance. They wanted to plow it. It sounds like they want to openly maintain it. If they didn't talk about increasing the footprint anywhere.
No, I think my limited understanding of it was they need about 100 by 100 cleared area. Whether or not they would intend to pave an area or whether or not they could just clear an area and then plow it, I don't know definitively, but that could very easily be part of their proposal to us.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any other discussion around land use?
Can I get a copy of the letter? I don't have it with me.
The request,
The
From legal.
from legal.
I did, yes.
I have
It's an
a,
email with an opinion, you want the opinion piece?
yeah, I have a building committee meeting tomorrow night, and if I can share that with them, at least help.
Alright.
Is there a recent update about the fire station? That was the other request, was for that land.
Right.
I-
You haven't
I
said
can-
anything about that?
I'm on the committee, so I can speak to it briefly.
Go ahead.
They're still evaluating sites. It seems like there's 3 currently that are being looked at. Knowing this, the level of detail that we're getting into, although that land could still be a possibility, I don't think it's as favored as a couple of the other sites at the moment.
Okay.
So, for what it's worth, I don't know how far that's going to go.
Is there any action the board wants to take in regards to the safety complex committee?
At the moment, it's just a police station that's being
Police station, sorry.
discussed. I don't know if there's anything we need to do as a board at this point. I think
I don't think there's anything we need to do. I don't think there's any pending items.
we're still trying to narrow down what makes the best sense for the community, but I don't think that is going to be the direction that committee goes in.
Okay. All right, seeing no further motions, we will move on to wellness curriculum.
Can I invite music to go first, because they would.
Music can go first.
Yeah, would you mind, because I know they need.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready, music?
Yeah.
All right.
You guys all have copies of it?
We do.
Awesome.
I didn't do the rubrics, Melissa, and Maria.
But they're
I,
linked,
They're
though. We
linked,
got the
but if you got an
file.
electronic copy, you
Yes.
can see it, but if you got a paper copy,
Right.
click.
It's in their Google Drive, so they have.
It is in our
their
drive.
phone.
Very good.
Nice.
Very good.
So the music curriculum looks a lot different from the old curriculum because it is aligned to the National Core Art Standards, whereas the old one was a 1990s standards. So these are, they kind of just go along with everything that Deerfield's already doing, their competencies. They're much more specific in terms of, if you look at the National Core Art Standards giant rubric as to what is expected of each grade level. And the document that we're proposing for the curriculum has all the expected components of Deerfield curriculum, missions, rationale, expectations. And then in terms of actual competencies, we put what it looks like to be competent in a chart in the curriculum document. So those are grade level bands, and then what a 3 would be on a report card. And then there's a link to the music competency rubrics, and that's for if you want to dive deeper and look at specific what a 1 looks like, what a 2 looks like, what a 3, what a 4. But it's the same language that's in the curriculum document. I'm ready for questions. Please say that as chair.
The biggest changes that happened since the last
So
document
since the
were
1990s document, it used to be, it was 9 standards, actually the last time, and then that was on a national level changed to 12 standards. And the standards are, I can sing alone with others a varied repertoire of music. So that's a really big bucket, and like, what does that actually look like, kindergarten versus 8th grade, and what is the actual skill? Well, that one's good actually because it says sing, but there's some other standards that are really hard to picture and hard to see, like what the action is, what's the thing being done, what does it look like when a kid is learning that, what's the spiral of skill, and so those standards were good. In sort of saying like what music class looks like, but it didn't really describe what students would know and be able to do. So these are more telling in that way, that they're actually like kids create, perform, respond, and connect. And then in those 4 large buckets, it gets really specific. So
if they're performing and they're at a kindergarten level, they can demonstrate awareness of expressive qualities such as dynamics and tempo that supports the creator's intent. And then it sort of spirals up, so like first and second grade, the same one, students are able to show how the exposure or the composer's intent show dynamics, tempo, and judge the accuracy and effectiveness of their own performance. So it's the same skill, but it's just a deeper level of learning. Whereas the other one was really like 9 things that everybody should do in music class, and then ideally the music teacher should know how to figure that out.
So I have a question in regards to the breaking of competencies. You have the middle school is split, so there's a 5-6 competency and then 7-8. Did you guys want to approach that as like the 5th through 8th is middle school, or
So
how are you doing with that?
ours in this document, so the curriculum document probably will live longer than the structure of our classes, to be fair and honest. But right now, what's in this document matches the structure of our classes in terms of expectations of grade level bands. So you have it right now as 7 and 8 and 5 and 6 because that's the actual literal grouping of students in our school. I don't know if that answers your question. But so this does match what's happening right now in the building.
So are you alluding to that you see music moving towards a very fluid
I'm alluding
situation?
to the 6 years I've been here, which are not long. I've taught a 6th through 8th class. I've taught a 7th through 8th class. I've taught an only 6th grade class. I've taught a 5th and 6th grade class. So as music teachers, when we have like that national document that really breaks it down, like nobody wants that minutia, but for us, that's great because then we can say, oh, like, kick it back, gear it up, that kind of thing. This matches though what's happening right now in school. She's being so kind.
Awesome.
So I think that like this right now is a really good, especially if someone else had to come in and teach this curriculum, this is like a lifeboat and a motorboat, not just like a lifesaver raft,
It seems like in regards to the ability to move based on talent between the different levels in music is more pronounced for a lot of kids than
You're having a super deep conversation that might not be a curriculum conversation. I agree. I've pulled 5th graders into my intermediate band. I've pulled sixth graders into my advanced band. Like, so they're not then by age level, they're by competency because you're meeting that competency. And then sometimes you just can't do that because of the schedule, so then you have to differentiate. And so maybe this kid's on a secondary instrument, or maybe this kid's now coming up with an improvisation part, or like
Or they're
solo.
band. I mean, we're the only curriculum where we have students who start private lessons at maybe age 3 on Suzuki violin, and we're meant to accommodate them in middle school with students who are just learning music literacy for the first time. So we have
Huge
enormous
disparity.
diversity
All texts.
within the same classroom, so we don't differentiate the way, the students in calculus and the students in algebra 2. We have to accommodate, so we have to really diversify for that student who's more advanced and is taking private study outside of school. And so we have some students doing chorus and band, things like that, to try to accommodate that, or leading a band. She had a student last year doing that, things like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, what I
So
was
for
kind of
that student,
driving
that
at is-
competency, yeah, you would want to look ahead. So even though your kiddo's in 7th grade, if they're clearly getting 4s on all their report cards, that's instead of 4. But then you could even say like, so where would they be on the 7th grade one? And like, oh, a 2 in this, a 3 in this though, and that's great because your kid's in, like I say, 4th grade, 5th grade, and it's like that aligned too, that you can look at the kindergarten rubric, and the 4 in kindergarten is what a 3 or a 2 is in 1st or 2nd grade, because it's.
So there's fluidity within.
Yes, definitely, for sure.
Cool.
It's super thorough. If you look at those rubrics, we did a great job.
Nate?
And you're both teaching some of the same age groups
I
Is that
think,
correct?
yes, the board. Yeah.
across the board. So have you had time and you have the opportunity to calibrate so that with this rubric, with the great job you did, are you able to then both look at, 2 different students in your different classes, but then how confident are you that they're arriving at the same score?
Endpoint?
No, competency grade, like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. So it really, I think that also depends on which competency in which rubric they're using. So on these grading rubrics, if it was like random student this performance and they're in her class, she'll probably score them the same way I would score them. But I think that the delivery or style could be different as how they get there. But if the student is not able to play, I can't remember the example I gave you, I think it was tempo and dynamics or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're shout singing in her room and you come to my room, you're still shout singing, that's still a 2. We both love you very much, and we might do different things to help you negate that.
Right.
Because that's not like a kindergarten count, that's like a 2.
Okay.
I think that's the one I used, I don't remember.
Okay.
But I think it's enough, it's very thorough in the competency descriptions.
Yeah.
And there might be wiggle room in terms of like, this kid gave a moving, like my emotive response to this was amazing, and you think it was the best thing you've ever heard, but that's still not what a competency grade is. So like those comments might look different, but that's not, doesn't matter, it's not a competency, you know?
All right. Any other questions?
I'd like to move that we adopt the music curriculum as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're on to wellness?
Yeah. I'll pass out there was one more part that was added after I saved the PDF. It's the wellness integration for grades K through 5 that are taught in class. Kristen Davis and Chris Motika worked with Russell Young to really work this through. Came to CRB, I think Nate can also speak to anything that I'm missing out on. To start off, the improvements in the wellness curriculum consisted of document was formatted to the way all the other curriculums are, with the guiding principles, the essential environment, essential actions, and the essential understandings and competencies. The competencies were developed using national standards and research in health and wellness. Those resources are at the end of the document. There are 3 competencies for each grade level, middle school grade level. Instructional units and corresponding topics are outlined throughout this curriculum, and the I statements are linked to the curriculum for further detail. At the end of the document, there is a section on wellness integration for grades K through 5 that CRB had requested be put in there, and those are the wellness standards that are covered in PD, or competencies that are covered in physical education classes. And the table of contents is now linked to find each section easily. So in grade 6, students in grade 6 are evaluating health behaviors to create goals to enhance health. 7, they're assessing different influences on health and advocate for themselves and others. And in 8th grade, they're synthesizing information and influences to adapt current and future health behaviors. There's a scope and sequence included for wellness with instructional units on personal care, caring for yourself, social emotional health, nutrition, fitness, and personal safety in both 6, 7, and 8. And then again, the paper I handed out to you is the wellness integration for grades K through 5. A lot of the health curriculum grades K through 5 is also supported in the classroom using responsive classroom, morning meeting and sharing and activity time to create community and support independent group problem solving skills and cooperation and social skills.
Do we incorporate nutrition into the health plan?
As one of the instructional units, there's nutrition and fitness in 6th grade and nutrition in 7th and 8th grade.
And it looks like it fits into PE during K through 5 as well, so nutrition's. I'd be curious if Russell was here, whether the idea of mindfulness shows up in the standards, in the national standards. I don't think I saw it anywhere in the document here, but that would be an interesting question to see whether it was in the standards.
Maybe under social emotional health, I know I've seen him use some mindfulness techniques in his classrooms.
Okay.
In his classes when he starts, and
You have some kindergarten teachers that do too.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I think Russell is a walking mindfulness.
Any questions? Sure.
Sorry, there's been enough time or opportunity to work with Chris Motika and you say Kristen Davis, but I mean having our curriculum, he's been here involved in this a fair amount. Is that
Russell has?
Yeah, Russell and Chris Motika have been able to get together a fair amount in creating this.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Great. Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're now on to continuing business. I would entertain having a 5-minute break. Aye. Right.
Mine was gonna be informational,
Informational is right.
rather than.
I wrote it down on the wrong.
So I will move that we take a
5-minute peace break. We take peace breaks. And that's not a second up. A brief recess for dinner. It's 7:15. I would entertain moving the staff report up to the next item. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Staff report, you're on.
Hi. I'm John Flatt. I'm the social studies teacher in 7th and 8th grade. I'm just going to give you a little peek into what we're doing right now. The first unit of the year this year is the Constitution. And so we've been studying the Founding Fathers. And I was inspired by my wife, who actually scored us tickets to Hamilton in a couple of weeks. And so I shared some of Hamilton's, couple of the video with Lin-Manuel Miranda and a few of the songs from the soundtrack. And with some help from our music colleagues, I had a discussion about the history and structure of rap. And basically, each student was assigned to write a rap about one of the lesser-known founding fathers. And because there are students that would, without hesitation, take a 0 rather than perform in front of their peers, I gave them 4 different presentation possibilities. They could stand in front of the class and rap, and several of them have and did brilliantly. They could film themselves, and we could watch it as a class. They could record themselves, and we'd listen to it as a class. Or as a final option, there is a computer program called Voki, where students can program a animated character to speak a script. And the essential skill that I'm working with students right now is to synthesize information, take disparate pieces of information and put them into a more general context. So each student had to look at at least three different sources about their founding father, get lots of facts about their life, and then tell me, well, what kind of man was this? You know, and then we had the long discussion why it was all men. Sorry, my brain just froze. And so the structure of the rap was that it had to have several verses and 2 choruses, and the chorus would make a grand statement about the founding father, a claim, and then the verses would have supporting evidence for that claim. That's something that we're working on in social studies, in science, in LA, to be able to back up a claim with supporting evidence. And I thought I would just play you one as a sample, and some of them were really very, very good. The students were not graded on the quality of their rapping, but on how well they met the rubric requirements, about how well they backed up their claim, basically, and did they cite their sources? Basic skills that we're going to be returning to over and over again throughout the year. And so this is by a student named Elizabeth, and she took the closest thing she could find to her founding father, who was Benjamin Franklin. So,
Charles Franklin John House almost went down as a lawyer in England. Ouch, but that went down as the Neverland. Decided to go as political power on the mainlands. His name was Pickney. Achievements and talkative aplenty. Just a shame he went down with the slaves of plenty. Burnout fresh out at 1781 ran for legislate. Won that war. Hey 2-0 cause daddy's pal voted. Left South Carolina. Headed to the Revolutionary War. Ended up for a year more on a boat. His name was Pickney. Achievements and talkative aplenty. Just a shame he went down with the slaves of plenty. Burnout. Married rich to the right missus. Mary Lawrence was the name. 3 children added to my glory. His name was Pickney. Achievements and talkative aplenty. Just a shame he went down with the slaves of plenty. Burnout.
you didn't catch what it said, burn ouch, every time she talks about the fact that he had slaves of plenty. That's one of the other things that we're talking about, is trying to see a more rounded, more complete view of historical figures, that once you get to a certain grade level, it's no longer good guys and bad guys. It gets a lot more nuanced and a lot more complicated. And one of the things that we're talking about is that these guys, Jefferson, for instance, talked a big story, he had a lot of big talk about all men are created equal, freedom, liberty, but yet, he owned 200 slaves. So some of the students have really picked up on that, the essential hypocrisy of some of this. But I think, for instance, by the way, this is half of her rap. She did a two-parter. That she's taking these different, her chorus was, that he, what did she say, that he was talkative, that he was a good communicator, and that he talked about liberty, but he still had slaves of plenty, and she keeps coming back to that, and she supports her claim well, and overall, the students did reasonably well on a scale from 1 to 4. The vast majority of them got a 2 on this, which is exactly where I want them to be at the beginning of the school year. There's always some higher achievers, but basically they're still learning the skills of backing up their claims. And, that's a life skill I want them to have. I think we've all experienced people making big claims with nothing behind it, and regardless of where they go in life, I think that's something that will serve them well. What?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? That's great. Very cool.
Thank you. I promise it's brief. Having a PowerPoint about what's been going on in the library. May I just start by saying thank you so much for the wonderful furniture. The kids love it. The middle schoolers love the middle school corner, and we've been doing a lot of lessons in the middle here, and the kids just love the library when you look. So one of the things that's been happening lately in the library is book tastings for 6 through 8. There is no regular library time for 6 through 8 students. So a couple of weeks ago, we set up the library like a cafe with these tables spread out, chairs around each table, candles and snacks and menus, and we put books on every table for them to have a chance to just try out a bunch of different books. They spent 3 to 5 minutes at each table looking at one book, reading a page or two, writing down notes about whether they would want to read it, and then going to the next table. It was really engaging. I was very gratified to see how much they loved doing it. And I've had kids ask me when we're going to do it again. That's one thing that's been going on for middle school in the library. We do have our media literacy classes in here for 7th and 8th grade, and sometimes for 6th grade, so that does get them into the library. And I always try to allow them some time to look for books as well. So,
Mystery Skype in 5th grade. We're just starting this with the new 5th grade class. It's a critical thinking challenge where the kids connect with a class somewhere else in the United States, and they, through a series of yes or no questions, they try to find out where this other class is before this other class finds out where they are. So it is a game. There's winners and losers, but our kids work really, really hard. This is last year's class, working on, they use maps, they use shared Google documents, they use Google Maps, all kinds of information sources that they can use to try to figure out where this other class is at. It's very fluid, and it really requires them to focus and think really hard, and they do, and they love it. So we did it twice last year with each 5th grade. This year we're just starting a unit with one of the 5th grades right now. We do, the last couple of years I've discovered that you can get a free Skype author visit on World Read Aloud Day. So the last 2 years, K and 1st grade, have come into the library during World Read Aloud Day for a free Skype author visit. This author is named Ellen Fisher. In this picture, she's showing them a picture of her book in, I think it was Korean. I can't remember exactly, but she read the book to them and then took some questions. So it's a wonderful opportunity for the kids to meet an author. And coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have author Cynthia Lord, who has a Newbery Honor Award, and she's going to be coming for 4th through 6th grades, and then author David Elliott is going to be coming with for pre-K through 3rd grade. So that's a little bit about what's going on in the library. So any questions about me? That? Yeah.
For the book tasting event, how did you choose the books to lay out? Was that?
So for 7th and 8th grade, I book talked the Isinglass Teen Reads List, which is a series of 10 titles that are available to students to read and vote on during the 2018-2019 school year. And so I put 2 on each table, and as they rotated through, they got an opportunity to read those books. But I did a quick introduction to the list before they started the placement. For 6th grade, I do the same thing with the Stone-Face books. So the books that they have an opportunity to vote on later in the year for their favorite.
They're the newest books out every year, essentially. The new books this year, the new books next year.
The collection.
Okay, great.
So it's something new for them to look at.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the PTO.
This weekend is our townwide yard sale. Next week is our coffee cut. And then we'll have the spiritual conference. That's all we're working on for this month. And Tuesday's our meeting. Fundraisers didn't do that. Fundraisers are do that. But we haven't held it. This is the week. Monday was the ones that went to the whole school, and Friday are the coupon books for the age group. We'll be tallying all of this.
Any questions to the PTO? Thank you, PTO. Executive board reports. We did have an executive board meeting right after we did negotiations last time. And the executive board meeting revolved around budget for the SAU, discussion around the recommendations that the executive board wanted to bring to the entire SAU, and that will be presented at the SAU-wide meeting, which is October 10th?
Next week.
In Pembroke? Is it Pembroke?
No, it's Epsom.
It's Epsom, excuse me. Please let Patty know whether or not you're going to attend. I will be there. Principals reports.
All right. Current enrollment, 541. Somebody in the office in particular over there worked very hard to clean up the Alma numbers that weren't necessarily matching up. So So the current number is 541 with, I believe we have 43 preschoolers. 40, pretty sure it's 42. And Candy's working on the beginning of the year report as well, getting that together. The Deerfield Fair happened. Opening ceremonies. I met with the advanced band and chorus. They did a wonderful job representing DCS. I was very proud of them. I took videos and they were reviewing the video. They're using a performance rubric in their band and chorus. So that was exciting. And the Deerfield Community School won the blue ribbon for the Deerfield Fair School House at the Deerfield Fair. Does that make sense? Yes. Don't make me repeat that.
Could you say it one more time?
So that's exciting. The kids were thrilled and we were very proud. Middle school advisory magnet field trips were a huge success. Our 6th graders went to the corn maze, came back with pumpkins galore. Our 7th graders went to Northwood Meadows and apple picking. And then our 8th graders made it all the way to the top of Mount Major and back down, all in one piece. So we were happy to have those go off very successfully. Our volleyball team won their first game the other day against Portsmouth Christian Academy. And our professional development Wednesdays that we have with the staff every Wednesday afternoons, the last couple of weeks have been focused on setting their goals for the school year. And today we in particular worked on their student learning objectives, which are going to be due on October 15th. Deerfield cross country team will be hosting the home meet this Friday, October 5th. The girls will be running at 4 o'clock and the boys will be running at 4:45. I will be here doing whatever Cindy Hansen tells me to do. I will park where she tells me to park, and I will do what she tells me to do. Is she not here? And that's on video, so she can hold that against me. Our 3rd graders are going on a field trip tomorrow to Great Bay. And Brian has been doing an exciting thing. He from his responsive classroom workshop they went to this summer, he came back and wanted to give school-wide rules a try. So he has been meeting with representatives from every single grade level from K through 8, and they've been taking their class rules and picking 2 or 3 rules that they would like to have as school rules. And he's been working with the representatives to narrow down their class rules into all school rules. So he's in the process of doing that. I think he said tomorrow he's meeting with a couple more kids to get 7th and 8th grade together to narrow it down a little bit more and come to consensus. Then he has to work with 5th grade and we'll decide on what the all school rules will be. And we will celebrate that by having an all-school meeting in the gym, where the whole school is going to get together. I don't know what the fire code is, so I think we'll be okay. We've had performances in there, so I know there were a lot of people there when I went to that. So that will be exciting. We'll celebrate the all-school rules at the first ever all-school meeting at DCS. And I think that's everything. Any questions?
Yeah, any update on how the new academic probation and athletics is going? We should have gone through that first meeting.
Yep. And so this, Brian, he went around today. We do have a couple of students on probation. And we went around a little bit with trying to figure out how to enter assignments into Alma and figure out whether they're missing or not. That got all worked out, so the teachers have entered all of the formatives that they have and then summatives that they might have. And students are able to access that information. So our first round of probation I think starts this week, tomorrow, and for 5 days.
One of the concerns we had when we talked about that policy before the start of school was engagement levels from the staff. When they came and presented their updates, their version, they sounded like they were engaged and had bought in, and they were going to Is that enthusiasm still?
Yes, absolutely, and the advisors have all figured out how to access their students so that they can get that information that they need. They've been meeting with the students, they've been talking to case managers, for any students that need to have that piece checked into. And yes, they're all on board, working to make sure that all kids are held accountable and getting the things that they need to get done.
And they're still committed to getting everything updated in
Yes,
time. And
yes, they were told.
so that we're getting an accurate picture after that.
Good. Any other questions?
Are we getting to the point now where MMS is starting, not MMS, I'm sorry. Alma, it was.
They're both bad words I've heard.
Is Alma are we starting to get through the learning curve with Alma and really getting comfortable using it, operating it? Is it getting cleaner, better, easier, more
I think so,
intuitive?
and then as soon as something gets easier, something gets more challenging. The growing pain, it's just the growing pains for right now. Then our next step is to be working to try to help our younger grades, primary grades, enter summatives and attach it to competencies. So that's going to be our next step for Alma. But the middle school has it down pat. They're entering formatives, and they're entering summatives. They're entering the competencies. They're entering the performance indicators. And so that piece has gotten much easier, I think, for our middle school crew. And so that piece was worked through. The attendance piece has been worked through, and those are the two biggies that and being able to communicate with parents is. There's still some things that, I mean, we talked to Candy. She would say there's still some things that are being worked out, but for the most part, there's still some growing pains, but the big things that the teachers need it for are worked out.
And then, obviously, we had a discrepancy. It was telling us 555 at one point, or 541. Do we know where it was wrong, or have we identified?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Have we identified where the fault was in that, or?
Yeah, there were students that had been withdrawn, but not withdrawn from. They hadn't been withdrawn from Alma yet, and it just was.
Poor dogs.
we had one of our tech coordinators. She has created her own class so that she could practice, and we didn't realize that the howls were not really for students. Different grade levels, they're actually dogs. So. Dog names. So we have since worked through that bug.
A Doberman, a German Shepherd, a Boxer, and a Labrador.
Right. Well, it's not like Howell. What is it?
Van Howell.
Van Howell. So close to Van Howell's. Van Howell family. They even had a contact information. They weren't in trouble.
So
those just so many pieces that were working against us with that number, but we finally got it down, and it's.
And that 541 number correlates to, we had you update the sheet.
Yep, and I have it updated again.
And that should more, we were at about 541 on that sheet when we saw it a couple weeks ago. So that now kind of flows with that.
Yeah.
That also puts our projections much closer to being in line with what the demographic study.
Still ahead of the
Ahead of the curve, but not 12 years ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
It probably puts us
5 or 6 years ahead.
5 or 6, but not 12.
Okay.
Sorry, and that number includes the pre-K or does not include?
It doesn't include preschool.
Doesn't.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Doesn't include preschool.
Because you broke out preschool.
And so we're in the building at any given time for students, because the preschool is
Morning or afternoon.
morning or afternoon, we're about 520 basically.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from the principal? Thank you very much. Curriculum Review Board.
We didn't meet.
Excellent. Space Needs Committee.
We met.
Tell us what happened.
We met last week, the week before the fair. And we had 4 people show up to the public meeting, so they all got drafted in. to help out. They were all actually very enthusiastic. I do applaud them. I think we have a great crew, a lot of people that are interested in data and manipulating data, so which is good. So we talked about, we reviewed the existing, we reviewed the demographic study, and then we, after talking about that, we did come up with a mission statement for that, and we talked about deliverables for what we wanted to get out of, for the committee. So the mission statement is basically to create a reusable framework for gathering and analyzing historic and current demographic data. There's two parts to it. That's part one. Part two is to develop and document a repeatable process for updating on a regular basis. So we want to make sure we have all the relevant information, and we want to be able to document the process for whoever comes after us to be able to just plug in the most recent data and make adjustments to the model so that we can keep track of where we're at with regards to projections and needs and that sort of thing. So we got a lot of work done. We divided up some work. We're looking at enrollment here at the school, how that's going, see if we need any more information there. Same sort of thing at the SAU, so we have some comparisons data, and then populations at the county and state level. So we're going to be plugging some holes in that demographic study, or bolstering, I should say, that demographic study, and then we'll have hopefully have a presentation and a model, like I said, that we can go forward with. One of the things that was suggested, and I thought it was a pretty good one, was looking at surrounding towns that have done the same process and seeing what has worked for them after the, going back and saying, well, you did that 5 years ago, how did it turn out? Were you on? Were you off? What did you look at? So hopefully get some good ideas there as well. Our next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. here, and we've had a little bit of scheduling confusion, but I think we'll get that straightened out. Sorry.
So then is part of your mission at some point going to be, and I guess I feel like when we created this, I think when we created it, we sort of didn't put a mission to it, but we were going to have you guys sort of come back and propose something, and we were going to agree. Do I recall that correctly? That we were going to adopt the mission or whatever. Approve, whatever. So I guess my question regarding the mission is, at some point, is there going to be sort of a third part, which would be then looking at, once your model's working, looking at what we have here, do we need more space?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate goal. Is once we have the data and we're comfortable with it, then how can we apply that, and what does that mean as far as space goes?
Okay.
So because my biggest fear is that we get these projections, and as soon as we go forward, we propose a new building or an addition or whatever, and we get it all done and all the money's spent, and then all of a sudden it's empty.
We're not as full as we thought.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's hard because we're in an anomaly.
We are. So more data is better.
Yeah.
So
I guess maybe
some of the just one other some of the data that some of the data sources that were used in the demographic study were rather dated. So we want to bring those up to date as well.
So I guess I don't know if that means tweaking it or adding a third bullet or something, but I feel like I would propose that would be part of the mission. That really is our goal. The model is important, but really it's going to be a tool that's going to help us figure out whether we need to make a case to the town that we need money to build a new building or an addition.
Yep. Agreed.
Thanks.
Sure.
Are we also looking at how the town is proposed to grow, any development projects, things like that are happening in the town as well? Are you getting factored into that?
That's one of the factors that we're looking at is building permits, also, outstanding. Also, we're getting information from the planning board. We're looking at the master plan, although somebody mentioned last meeting. Master plan's out of date, but the town is starting to think about updating that. So. There are documents that exist, but may not be.
One of the items that you mentioned about looking at future developments, that the struggle, and we're talking about this on the police building commission, is there is still a lot of land in this town that is held by a handful of families, and at any given point one of those families could cash in the ticket and say, okay, we're done, here's 100 acres, 30 houses go in, and bang.
It would be useful to look at a build-out analysis.
If we were fully built out, where we would be.
If we were fully built out, yeah, based on what's under conservation easement, what's municipal land. Like there are towns like Bedford, which is literally 100% built out at this point. If there's open land, it's under conservation easement, whereas we have a lot of available land.
That's where we could explode, is suddenly a handful of families could dump 1,000 acres into development pretty quickly, and next thing you know, there's 300 houses with 500 kids coming out of them, and oh my God, would that hurt?
Yep. So just in regards to planning, I did reach out to the planning board to talk to them about the CIP. They're going to put me on the agenda so that I can encourage them to move forward with the CIP.
And even give them a draft of what it would look like?
I'm not quite there yet.
Jim, if I give a copy of this to Ken, is he available and then report, do you want me to make a copy for everyone on the board?
Sure, you can put it up in the Google Drive.
Okay.
All right, staff reports, we did. NBC reports.
NBC does not meet again until the end of the month. The chairwoman has sent over a tentative schedule. She did have a tentative delivery date from the board for their budget. I reiterated, as I did in the last meeting, that the budget would be provided after we are through with it. Told her I'm hoping we are there for the meeting of December 11th. There's a couple other dates that we need to work out and hammer out just in the logistics on holidays falling on Tuesdays this year. Kind of knocks a couple meetings out with New Year's and Christmas. But we're working out the details, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks the schedule is ready for the NBC to approve at the next meeting, and then we'll have a better feel as to what's going on.
All right. We're on to policies. EEA, transportation, the second reading. Anybody who is interested in changing the transportation policy?
Can I ask a question or two of the principal? So, last meeting we talked about this. Parks and Rec indicated that if they moved 10 more children into the program, or it was made available to space, has the busing changed? Has that alleviated any stress yet, or are we still juggling on a daily basis?
We're not getting any more angry phone calls. It seems to have settled down. People who need transportation have perhaps found alternative ways of being transported, whether it's a carpool situation. So as far as I know, I have not received any more information about people being upset about transportation.
But our buses are still very full.
a couple of them are really fast. So.
I think,
We were even more full yesterday when soccer was canceled and the kids were sent home.
have you had any circumstances in the last couple of weeks where you haven't been able to put kids on a
No.
bus?
No.
So we've had the capacity to move the children we needed to move.
So we are sitting through the seat.
I'm not saying we don't need another bus for next year, but if it's a budgetary item or that's a different circumstance, I think we need another bus next year regardless.
I think we need to do a thorough analysis of the bus routes and the kids, and I'm working on that. I just have not had bandwidth to move forward.
Do we have, at least from it might shed a little bit of light, can we find the old 8 bus routing that we had from, it must have been like 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago? So at least see if it looks like that 8 bus was where it may have been peeling the runs from.
Right. I think Kathy will have that on what remains of Sakai somewhere.
Yeah, I put that request out, I'm not sure if I can heard back.
Okay. I guess I'd like to look at that. As far as the policy goes, I think right now, I don't know that there's anything I necessarily personalized.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a change to EBA at this point? Okay. Hearing none, we could take it off for third reading. JFAB. If you have, Leslie, if you have questions, what's going on, then just yell at me. So,
We're trying copies of all this stuff.
everything is on our website.
We will email you tomorrow with information. We'll add you to the school board's Google Drive and give you directions on how to get an SE email address and all that stuff.
And it is now part of Gmail as opposed to this antiquated system we had a year ago.
We still do run some of that. I thought she'd appreciate that. All right. JFAB, admission or tuition of non-residents, or tuition and non-resident students.
Yeah.
This is the second reading. This is one required by law.
No,
Are there any changes? Did everyone get a chance to read this?
Thank
you.
These are all, this is a legal policy.
Yeah, this one was added because you didn't have it and it's required. And what I gave you was the sample from the School Boards Association.
Are there any changes or additions or edits that we wanted to do?
The content is what is required by law?
Yes. The policy and the sample is usually developed from the law.
Okay.
But it can be tweaked and customized.
Okay.
If you, whatever changes you wanted to make, if I needed to run it by our attorney, I could do that.
Okay.
The very last paragraph, the provisions of this policy may be modified and approved by page 8 pieces. Do we need to spell out who has the authority to make those modifications?
It is your policy, and there are a couple of statutes that allow that to be modified. So you have the policy for manifest hardship, and you also have the policy for reassignment on the best interest of the student. So that's why that might not necessarily follow the guidelines of this policy, but you still have that authority.
Okay, I just didn't know if we need to
No,
spell out that.
yeah, no, that's
the
required.
School board will be making, the modification by
Yeah.
the school board or by the superintendent.
Is a separate policy required that would define how we would accept? How many students do we currently have from out of district in our district? I don't think it's a big number, if even more than 0.
That would be a non-member.
Yeah,
we
had a
have?
couple of non-public situations in the past, but I don't know if the students are still, it's very rare.
So then do we need to have some sort of a separate policy that would say how the process by which a student would be accepted or something like that?
Buried in it is.
I think those other two policies, if someone were to contact me about that, I would reference those two policies.
Okay.
If you want to add language into this policy, that would be fine.
And is there any way that this could be used as a high school wrangling and positioning?
It wouldn't.
No, well, it's non-resident students, so
So
it wouldn't
it
be
would-
our students
yeah, it
going
would be-
someplace else. It would be
It would not be our cost.
if
We have
somebody
no high
wanted to
school
come
in our
here.
district.
Yeah.
Okay.
For you. An unusual circumstance.
So any changes? Should we push it to the third, or since I haven't heard anything,
I would move to approve.
there's a second?
Am I dying on this one?
I'm going to wait one more week.
I'll second it.
Okay.
You guys like to drag them out. I want to get them done.
So we have a motion and a second to approve this policy at this point. If you are interested in delaying it for 1 week, I'm totally fine with that.
2 weeks.
It seems like we need every week.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I'm okay delaying it.
You'd like to delay?
Yeah. Having one more person look at it, have our new board member take a look at it with us.
Will you remove your motion?
So done.
I'll remove my second. We will push it to a third reading. Where we at now? Hamma. Teaching about alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. This is required by law as well. Changes to Hamma. You guys want to wait on this one too?
I'd like to wait one more. Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that? All right. That gets us through our policies. Informational items. SAU full board meeting October 10th in Epsom Central School. What that is we are part of 5 towns in our SAU, and we get together twice a year as an entire entity. All board members are invited. The voting weight of towns is, I can explain it to you. It's complicated. However, we do like to have good attendance. They have to have a quorum. There's dinner, and then it's the budget for the SAU. The SAU office is what operates a lot of our HR resources. It pays for our superintendents. It pays for our business administration. We pay a percentage of it based on the number of students we have in comparison to all of the other towns in the SAU. So the October 10th meeting will be the presentation of the budget and changes. The second meeting, October 24th, is for the voting on the budget. Correct?
Yep, public hearing and the vote.
Okay, I'm not going to skip public comments this time.
Well, can we put my informational item in?
Oh, I am really killing it with the agenda tonight. Nate, your informational item.
So thanks. I was helping staff the 6th grade fundraising booth at the fair this weekend, and so I sort of heard I was talking to a lot of people as they walked by, and one of the concerns that I heard was that from a parent, a recent DCS parent but a current CHS parent, that this weekend, this past weekend, also happened to be, in addition to the Deerfield Fair, was also homecoming at Concord High School. And we looked a little bit, and it seems like that's not a new thing. It has happened in the past, but also it has happened that homecoming has not been on the Deerfield Fair weekend. So I guess I was wondering whether it's worth respectfully requesting from Concord High School or school district whether they could consider, the fair is kind of a big deal for our kids, and if they're feeling torn between the homecoming at the high school and also the fair, I wonder whether there would be whether the Concord School District would be willing to consider that when they're setting their calendar. And I don't know if there are many weekends like that in Deerfield, but that might be one of them that they might consider taking under advisement when they're setting their calendar. So I don't know what I'm asking. Maybe we could.
Would you like me to do that as the board rep, or would you like the superintendent to ask the superintendent?
Probably just superintendent. Superintendent would be fine. Just to sort of just make a respectful request. Could they take that under consideration when they're scheduling?
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yep. Great.
Try to citizens' comments again.
Public comments. Come on, Tim, you got some.
We haven't had any public comments today.
All right. Non-public session. Per NHRSA 91-A:32. Wanted to talk about negotiations.
Oh, right. Okay. The negotiations can be a non-meeting.
Okay, we can do a non-meeting.
Yep.
So do we need non-public?
Don't think so.
We do not need non-public.
And we don't have any.
Fantastic. Appointments and resignations.
There is none, so we would just be adjourning at this point.
We will be adjourning
I will move to adjourn.
at 8 o'clock.
Not even.
7:59.
Not even.
Less than
What
7:59.
We are adjourning.
This is that 2 meeting month thing.
I like it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All right.